Hello everyone and welcome to JJ Painting, but before we get into today's video, I just want to remind everyone that there is still a little bit of time left to get 1,000 likes on Challenge 99 Video 11. If that video gets 1,000 likes by the 23rd of July, I will give away that Space Marine Battle Company. That is right, someone will get an entire Space Marine Battle Company for free if that video gets 1,000 likes, but you've only got until the 23rd of July, otherwise I don't know what I'm going to do with that company, but it won't be a giveaway. In any case, let's get on to today's video. Hello there and welcome to JJ Painting. I am JJ, and what do we do on this channel? Well, we talk about the hobby mostly. We talk about retrospectives of how the hobby's come, the evolution of certain model ranges, where the hobby is now compared to how it used to be. Sometimes there's tutorials, sometimes there's painting challenges. It's all varied, there's something here for everyone. And today's video, we are talking about what you should do if you're going to create a battle company or collect a Space Marine battle company. Now, full disclosure, even at the time of Challenge 99, that wasn't my first battle company. I have done 1 or 5 before this one. Yes, I have painted a lot of companies over the years, and this one was no different. But as a result, there are things that I've learned from painting the Howling Griffins and stuff that I've accumulated over the years of knowledge of how to do large projects. So whilst I am talking primarily about Space Marine battle companies, this can also be translated to large projects that are going to take a lot of time anyway for you to collect and to paint. And obviously today we're going to be carrying on with our Space Marine Ancient, this guy here, and we're going to be doing the banner, and at the end of the video we are going to be seeing everything he is all about. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Number 1, go slow. Build and paint 1 unit at a time is a good way to start this. As I said in the previous video, rushing this project really is going to be the death of it. It's a long project and you will need stamina to finish it. So it's very important that you take your time, go slow, and make sure that you are doing everything in good step. One of the best things to do in order to make this as easy as possible is to, as I say, build and paint 1 unit at a time, because that will give you a good sense as to each step in the progression, but it also balances out feeling like you don't have this massive to-do list hanging over your head. And the other thing to bear in mind with this way of doing things as well is that if you aren't rushing, it means you can have consistency. So if you do want to do things to the model, such as remove mold lines, drill out gun barrels, and also paint to a certain standard, it means that you're able to do these things consistently. It means that you're not necessarily having to rush certain things either, but also it means that if things do start to go awry or you start making little mistakes, then you're in a much better frame of mind and a much better headspace than if you were rushing. If you were rushing, you may not feel like you can go back and correct those mistakes immediately, but if you're going slow, then you will have allocated yourself time to go over mistakes, to fix certain things, and to stop yourself from feeling like there's no time to change or fix anything. And it also means that it will be far less tiring. Painting models can be quite tiring, and I think that's something which we don't talk about a lot. It can be tiring and it can be draining, but by going at a much more slow, more considered pace, you will be able to keep your stamina up and you will have the energy to carry on way longer than you probably think you would do than if you were rushing. And also it means that overall the work itself will be a bit more satisfying because you'll be able to keep enjoying it for longer rather than your enjoyment being dependent on how much energy you have. So that's why it's important to go slow and keep a good pace. Number 2, do plan what you're going to do from the beginning. Now the reason I do this one second is because this ties into pacing. If you start rushing into decision making, as I said in the previous video, that means that it's easier to make mistakes that are harder to come back from. But if you plan everything out, such as what you want your units to be equipped with, what you want your characters to hold, what colours you want to use, what you want the bases to look like, then you will have a much better idea going into the project than if you simply start. And the other thing to bear in mind with this, and how it ties back into the building and painting aspect of it as well, is that there's less guessing, there's less staring at sprues, there's less wondering what you should do next. And it means that you won't get lost in the project either. You won't find yourself with loads of models that you simply don't know what to do with. Because even if you don't know what to do with them at the planning stage, at least you will have eliminated options that you know you don't want to do and kept the options that you think could be beneficial further down the line. And the other thing about planning early on is that it can also tell you how much of the project you want to give time to, and also what extent you want to go with the project. If you want to do an army that's non-metallic colours, then more power to you. If you want to freehand chapter symbols, then you can do that at the planning stage. Or if you want to do a custom colour scheme and you want to choose where your colour balance is, then that's the time to do it. It gives you a lot more time whilst you're doing the project to enjoy doing the project, because you've done the back work and the leg work before you've gotten into it. So to summarise on why you should plan is fairly self-explanatory, obviously, but it will also reveal to you little things and little details that you may not have thought of initially, but will be very useful to know before you start the project, rather than waiting until once the project is underway to address. So that's why it's very important to plan what you're doing from the word go. And this brings me on to my next point, number 3. Do test models. Now, I've said test models are one of the most important things out there when you're doing any project of any level, and it's something which I don't really feel is talked about enough. Test models are really important because not only are many models very different in terms of the texture, where the contours are, and their size, it also very much gives you an idea as to how the paint looks on the model. Oftentimes people do just start with an army and start painting, and that's fine, but I don't believe that it helps anyone to go in dark or uncertain when it's a model which they may not have painted before, or if it's a colour scheme they may not have used before. It's vitally important to test your models and test your paints and test your techniques before you start painting them. This is as important for a combat patrol as it is for a battle company, but for a battle company it's especially important because if you're going to be committing to doing a large-scale project, you're going to want to make sure that you know precisely how you're doing those models. And when I do test models, there are 2 models in particular you should be doing. Your battle line, or troop units, and one minor character. So this can be, for example, a lieutenant for the Space Marines, and a tactical marine, or an intercessor, or even a chaplain, just so that you get an idea as to how the colours will look on your models before you start painting them all. This will also give you senses of where the challenging parts are going to be, where the colour scheme will be easiest, and also where you're going to need to spend the most amount of time, whether that's things such as the main colours, the trims, the decals if you're using transfers, and all those other little details that take a bit of time to get onto the models but aren't immediately obvious when you look at the model or look at the colour scheme before you do it yourself. So the test models are a vital thing to do in a project, especially one this size, and doing them would be one of the saving graces of the whole thing. Test models for the Howling Griffins was probably the smartest thing I did in that entire project, to be honest with you. Number 4, paint towards milestones. So what I mean by that is have certain milestones that you want to achieve. Don't rush to get to them, but make sure you have them either written down or in the back of your mind. So milestones could be, obviously, the first squad, the demi company, the halfway point, or 1,000 points of models, so you have a usable 1,000 points in your battle company. So that could be 2 or 3 tactical squads, one of the assault squads and your command squads is about 700 to 1,000 points depending on how they're equipped. And the thing which should be useful for you to remember at this stage as well is that gives you something that gives you a constant sense of achievement as you're going. Because painting one squad is an achievement, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time, when you've got another 90 Marines that need painting. But it's important to remember that you did still paint those 10 models. And when you paint the second squad, that's another 20, and the one after that, another 30, and so on and so forth. But having those milestones gives you something within the project to work towards. And when you tie that back into my original point about going slow and building and painting one unit at a time, it means you start to build up a complete picture slowly, rather than feeling like you have a very long to-do list that you're just chipping away at, and it will help you keep a sense of fun and a sense of, as I say, achievement throughout the project. It will feel far less tedious if you make sure that you're acknowledging the milestones as they come as well. Even if your milestones are just the next squad and the next squad and the next squad, that's good, because that also helps you plan, as I said earlier on, and those milestones will be there for you when you get to them. And to summarise on this point as well, the other reason that milestones are very good for a project this size is that, again, it stops you getting lost within the project. It doesn't mean that you're then left with 70 models to do and you have no idea what you're doing with anything, and you also have no idea where to go. You will have a very clear sense of where your progression is, and you'll be able to see it, obviously, because even if you've only got 30 painted models on the shelf, you will still have 30 painted models on the shelf instead of 100 unpainted models in a box. So that's something to bear in mind as you go. And this brings me on to my next point. Find a way to stay engaged with the project. And I think this is a bit less general, more specific in terms of how you want to do the project itself.
One thing which was quite helpful for the Howling Griffins for myself was actually looking into the backstory and then writing the captain's lore. And now this may sound a little bit silly in the grand scheme of things, but at the same time, at the point there's well over 100 novels dedicated to Space Marines, I'd say own it at this point. These are your Space Marines, give them a story. Give every single Space Marine a story if you want to. And in a weird way, that will give you a bit more ownership over them, and it'll make them feel like they're more personal to you, rather than just being another Ultramarines company, for example, or another Blood Angels company, or another Salamanders company. And this is a good thing to remember as you go forward, is that these are still your models. The models and the colours may not be ones that you've invented. If it's a custom chapter, then I'm sure you've done this already. But if you're painting an established chapter, I'd still find a way to tie it back to something that's personal to you. And this will help you stay engaged with it, or it definitely helped me stay engaged with the Howling Griffins. And it did help me want to come back to them to continue them as time went by. So to summarise with being engaged with the project itself, this is something which is very personal, but I do think finding a way to take ownership of it will help a lot. So this brings me on to my next point as well, which also ties back into staying engaged with the project, is document your progression. One of the things that is difficult to remember, especially when you're in the middle of a project, is how far you've come, even if it may only have been painting that one squad. If you take a big picture of all the boxes as they've arrived, if you've ordered everything in bulk, or take pictures of the unopened boxes, then just the step-by-steps, so during the construction, during spraying, during painting, and just have those available. You can even post them online. Instagram has a very nice Warhammer community and everyone's very supportive, so that would be a good place to document how you're progressing. And it will give you something to look back on, even if you get to squad 4 of 10. And you are feeling a little bit slowed down and you do need a rest, you can then go onto there and you won't just have the finished models on your shelf already, you will also have the history of what you've done. So you'll be able to see those milestones as you've built them, as you've painted them, and as you've removed mold lines, as you've sprayed things, as you've tidied up little details here and there. You'll be able to see those clearly. So that sense of progression will remind you that even though the project isn't finished, you've already done a lot of good work, and hopefully that will give you the energy to keep doing good work as well. And in that respect, it's really important to bear in mind that whilst you're documenting these things as well, it in and of itself can actually help give you that bit more of an incentive to carry on, because, and I can only speak for myself here, it's good to know when you finished something or when you're nearly finishing something that there's quite a bit of history that you can look back over, and it also gives you a sense of what you should do next. So anything that you want to build on from your previous squads or your previous units, you can use that in the next one as well. So rather than changing things throughout the project, as I said, is something you should be wary of. What it means is that you can still improve upon what you've done before. If there are certain techniques you use on some squads that you want to do more with in the next one, then you can do that. If you're very comfortable now with the basics and you want to try something as challenging as one of the main characters, you can also do that. And all of this to say is that you should be able to push yourself and do the opposite of what sometimes happens. Sometimes you will get a project that you will start off and the first few models look fantastic, but you can almost put them in a line and you can almost see how people get distracted, get tired, get a little bit disinterested, and the last model doesn't necessarily have the same polish as the first one. If anything, doing this will help you do the opposite, where the first models will be a little bit scrappy because they're your first ones that you've done, a la your test models, but by the time you get to the last one, then hopefully that will be the one which it looks the best out of everything, because you've had time to refine, to tune up, to tweak, and to experiment to get it the way you want it to look. And the last point for this video is remind yourself why you are doing this. And this is an important thing to do, I think, for any project, even if it is a kill team or a battle company or something bigger. Remind yourself why you want to do this project and why you want it to be finished and why you want to finish it. And this is something you have to ask yourself before you start doing it as well. Why do you want to do this? And this is a really important question, because that will determine whether or not you're going to give yourself the time, if you'll have the energy, or if you'll even have the incentive from yourself to do it. One of the hardest things I think to do with any kind of project, no matter how big or small, is to sustain the initial excitement of, I've got a new army, I've got some new models, let's open all the boxes and have fun. Because we do want to have fun, and even if you do have a tournament that you want to get these models to, or you just want them to look good on the shelf, that's still fine. And if that's enough to sustain you, then brilliant. But if you do need a bit more, then it's worth asking yourself these questions, and it's worth giving yourself the time to really reflect as to why you want to do this project. And then you can start the project and take it as slowly or as quickly as you want to do it, but at least you'll know you're doing it for the right reasons, even if those reasons are just for you and not necessarily to do with anything else or anyone else. And this brings me on to the absolute last thing I want to do to summarise all of this. The things you should do when painting something as big as a Space Marine Battle Company, or any big project, is the time and the money and also the amount of energy it takes are all things that are enough to turn people off. But if you have a very clear idea as to what you want to do with it, and then you can relate that back to why you want to do it, that should be enough to get you through. In the past, for me, I did have the ambition once of having an entire Space Marine chapter because I wanted an entire Space Marine chapter. I didn't finish it, obviously, but I did get close. But my reasoning, I can't really remember what it was at the time, to be completely honest with you. But I definitely remember part of it thinking is, I'm happy to paint this colour scheme over and over and over again because the end result is what I want to see. And that did help me finish the companies. And I've done the Space Wolf Great companies with sagas and all the rest of that. And the Howling Griffins, they were documented, there was a lore, there was a story, that helped finish them as well. And these are all things that can possibly help you. But if you need something else that's going to help you out, then definitely think about what you're going to need. And once you figure that out, let me know in the comments below. And anything else that you think is going to help you do your battle company and get it finished. But as always, and as ever, let me know what you think and the things that you think would help you get a battle company done. And what helped you if you have done a battle company. Let me know your thoughts and let me know how you did. I look forward to hearing from you.
So I hope you guys found that video interesting and useful. If you did, let me know in the comments below. And whilst you're down there, like, subscribe, hit the bell button, all that good YouTube shilly stuff. Check the links as well down there for things like my Patreon and my website with all my services on it, and also my Instagram if you want to just see pictures of all my stuff. I post my videos on Wednesdays and Fridays, and that's probably going to be the same for a little while. But thank you all very, very much for watching. Goodbye, have a lovely day, and don't forget, Challenge 99 Video 11, 1000 likes by the 23rd of July. Take care, and goodbye.